Hello everyone and welcome to our event today, World Eating Disorder Action Day, and we're here with Kel O'Neill. Kel, welcome back to Online Events.
Thanks, John.
Great to have you back for, I guess, a day, particularly in the US and globally as well, that is focused on eating disorder. So it's great to be in this dialogue with you about this.
Yeah. I'm actually really excited because this morning I've seen that they've translated last year's video, which I know you're going to play, with subtitles, and I've seen it in this morning, Chinese, Spanish and Italian, which is really exciting because I think often there's a huge disconnect. Like you say, it's largely American and it's called World Eating Disorder Action Day, but still at the moment the predominance of the people actioning are in America and Australia. So I was super excited to see other people picking up the baton.
Fantastic. So then it's accessible to people in more languages, so more locations, and yeah. And does that... Oh, I'm already got a question for you, Kel. I'm not giving you a moment's peace, but I just wonder if that reflects kind of where we are in terms of understanding eating disorders. It's like America, Australia, UK kind of out in front with that, or maybe we're a bit behind, or what?
I would say that America is ahead, and there tends to be much more research produced out there. There's much more variation in treatment out there, and I'd like to think that we were quickly following, but occasionally clients' experiences suggest otherwise. And there is a European eating disorder kind of corresponding collection, and there's also a Middle Eastern one as well, but given that I seem to spend my life kind of absorbing any information that anywhere puts out, very little seems to come from elsewhere, other than in the eating disorder journal that we have in the UK, which is the European Eating Disorder Journal. You do see articles from elsewhere in the world there, but generally speaking, when you see kind of something big in the news, it's usually coming from Australia or America or here. And I don't know why that is, but I would guess it's funding related.
Yes, often things are tied to money, and I guess it's a part of the field that still needs a lot of work and a lot of attention. Yeah.
And even when we do workshops, even now, we still get kind of this perception that, is it a westernized illness? And therefore it seems like especially interesting that there's a Middle Eastern kind of collection of people looking at eating disorders, but actually it isn't westernized, just it's spoken about slightly more, still nowhere near enough, but slightly more this side of the world than it is the other side of the world. So maybe it's a bit more public and it's slightly less stigmatized, but it goes on everywhere.
Yeah, like it's part of the human condition and not something that's necessarily about culture. Yeah. Oh, we're getting right into this, Kel. This is fantastic. We usually start by you saying a little bit about yourself and where you are and what.
Questions.
Well, can you tell us a little bit about your work? Just like for colleagues who are meeting you for the first time, and then we'll get right into the clip. And yeah.
Sure. So I am a counsellor with private practice in Cheshire, which is in North West England. And in addition to this bit seems to get longer each time I say it. I'm also a supervisor and a trainer, so I run workshops anywhere in the country to anybody that will listen to me speak about eating disorders in any way, shape or form. I have also just started to dip my toes into getting into a little bit more research. I'm particularly interested in kind of the practice research disconnect and client feedback into research, not getting into practice as well. So I'm particularly interested in that. And then I've got my blog, which is mostly about eating disorders. That's mentalhealthbites.com. And I think that's everything I'm doing at the moment. I can't keep up with myself sometimes, but really, I love all of it.
Yeah, so you're doing lots of different things. Your audio just broke up at the start where you were saying you're a therapist in private practice, so you're seeing clients too, as well as training colleagues and raising awareness. And
yeah. So the split tends to be roughly 3 days in practice, 3 days tending to training and research and the blog, and occasionally that kind of spreads beyond those 6 days. But ideally, that's what my week looks like.
And most weeks, or sometimes you can have a day where you've got some time off as well.
And realistically, often if I might be invited to speak to an event, and it might be in the evening, so I might get the morning off, and then I might get the morning off tomorrow. But I think if you're passionate about something, it's very hard to turn it off. So I find myself creeping over to the website to write something, or grabbing on my coffee table. I just have a pile of research and eating disorder and that sort of textbooks and journals. So I do have time off, and I'm very much attempting this work-life balance thing. But I also am very passionate about it. So probably I get told quite often by you and the people that I work with that maybe I should take some more time off.
Yes, and then you're busy telling me the same thing, aren't you? Yes. So I think we need each other as colleagues just to say, are you okay? Yes.
You're the only other counsellor I find online at 5:30 in the morning already on the way to work.
Yes, guilty as charged. So, well, it's great to hear about your work and how passionate you are for that, Kel. I think that makes all the difference. I guess we wanted to play the clip. Now, I've Googled it and I've just assumed I've got the right clip. So let me just check it is. It's the cast from the film The Bone, and they're all kind of contributing some voice around 9 things. Yeah. And that's right, isn't it? And have you seen the movie, Kel?
The film was released for, I think it's the Sundance Festival in January. And I haven't been able to see it, but it's supposed to be being released for public consumption in July. So anytime right about now.
Fantastic. And I think later in the year it will also come to Netflix. I was doing a bit of research, so I've added it to my list, so when it arrives I can watch. Do you have a sense of the storyline and what is going on in the movie?
I haven't seen very much about it, to be honest. I'm always very sceptical when there are popular media stories of eating disorders, because there tends to be a preference to show particular elements and not the full picture, and only particular presentations of eating disorders. And I know this film in particular, kind of guessed by the title, is slightly slanted in that way. But I'm hopeful, because obviously they got on board with AED, that's the Association of Eating Disorders, which is kind of the leading group of collecting together eating disorder practitioners around the world. And they got on board and did this, which shows some good understanding. So I'm hopeful.
Yes. Yeah. And so I guess the lead character is presenting with an eating disorder, and then there's the doctors trying to work with her, and but let's see when we watch the movie how it is, and
maybe we shall come back and review it.
Well, that would be fascinating, wouldn't it? Yes. Maybe we could do a panel with you and Keanu Reeves and the other You could go with that, Kel. Yes. Shall I play the clip then just now, and then we can get into some discussion around it? If, colleagues who are with us live, if they've got some questions or comments, we'd love to hear them too. So so I guess you're not going to see the clip because it only will go out to the colleagues online. So I'll go very quiet for a bit, Kel, but you'll know when it's done, as I'll come right back. I'll do that now.
Truth number 1, many people with eating disorders look healthy, yet may be extremely ill.
Truth number 2, families are not to blame and can be the patients' and providers' best allies in treatment.
Truth number 3, An eating disorder diagnosis is a health crisis that affects personal and family functioning.
Truth number 4. Eating disorders are not choices, but serious, biologically influenced illnesses.
Truth number 5. Eating disorders affect people of all genders, ages, races, ethnicities, body shapes, weights, sexual orientation, and socioeconomic status.
Truth number 6. Eating disorders carry an increased risk of both suicide and medical complications.
Truth number 7. Genes and environment play an important role in the development of eating disorders.
Truth number 8. Genes alone do not predict who will develop eating disorders.
Truth number 9. Full recovery from an eating disorder is possible. Early detection and intervention are important.
Okay, thanks everyone for watching the clip. That's just coming back with Kel. Kel, I'm not sure if you can hear me, but I don't see you right now. Is your camera got switched off?
I can hear you, and it's still, I can't see you either.
You can. Okay. Let's just pause for a moment. I will call you back. Maybe the clip has interrupted us.
Okay.
So, yeah, won't be long.
Okay.
Hi, it's Sandra here with a tutorial on how to log your CPD hours in the online events library. Once you've watched the video within the library, you just scroll down to near the bottom of the page. You'll see the fields to fill in here. First of all, we just click on the box to confirm you've completed the video and then type in the fields below. So first of all, what did you learn? Then how do you intend to apply this in your practice? Just make sure all the boxes are filled out, don't leave anything blank. And then underneath, do you have any further action for your next CPD cycle? And once you've done that, you click on Submit, which will then give you the option to download the CPD certificate right away and then view the full record of learning here. This is how your record of learning will be shown, and you can print that off at any time. Now, just to show you how to access the record at any time.
Hi everybody. Hi Kel, we've got you back. I'm not sure what happened with the tech there. So
It's like a bit of stress to make it perform better.
it just gets the old adrenaline going, doesn't it? Absolutely. Yeah. So, a colleague asking when you might be doing some training next in the west of England. Shall we start there before we come to the clip? Do you have any plans to be in the northwest of England?
I'm in the northwest of England, so I'm always open to running extra ones in the northwest of England. We're actually now at the end of the academic year, and we usually run during the academic year. So we run our training calendar from September to June. I have got a booking in July this year, and then usually over the summer I only do in-house stuff where people have asked me to go to them. I kind of leave that as a side, so I've got a gap to fit extra stuff in there. But I have ran quite a lot in the northwest before this point, so I'm now running it basically when enough people have told me that they're interested. So if the person that's interested wants to email me at Kel O'Neill at counsellingtraining.co.uk, then I can add you to the list, and as soon as I've got sort of half a dozen, 10 people interested, then at that point I'm okay, I've got enough to make at least something slightly viable, and I'm more than happy to look at running a workshop one. What I have got is I have got quite a lot of people in the northwest that have attended workshop one that keep knocking on my email box asking when there's going to be a workshop two. So if I get the opportunity to run a workshop one, if some people are interested in that in the northwest, then I suspect I'd get the opportunity to run both of them. So the short answer to that is no, there's nothing on the calendar, but there can be.
Yes. So anybody who's watching this wants to do some training, pop an email over to you. The links are in the resource guide. Sandra's putting your email address in the chat room. And if you're watching this in the library, the link to your website is on this page. So, and of course, if the colleague is part of an organisation that wants to come and book you in for the training, you're up for that too, Kel. Yeah.
Yeah, I usually say if you work with a collection of people that equals more than 10, that it's usually then at that point more cost effective for you to say, hey, Kel, come and run an event at our location on a day and a time that suits us, subject to me being able to be available on that day, obviously. Because as I'm sure you will appreciate doing what you do, John, that the advertising and all of that sort of stuff takes up a huge amount of time. So if anywhere from 10 to 22 people approach me collectively and say, we want an event, then that really keeps the costs down and makes it better for everybody. I'm not looking to get rich off my training. I'm just looking to spread the knowledge. So I'd much rather that as well. But obviously that's not always possible. Equally, if you work in an organisation that's got 6 people, but you're attached to other organisations that have got people that are also interested, I've got no problem with you selling places on the training that you've booked with me. Make a profit on it. I don't care.
Yeah, great. So get a group of people in the room and let's get some learning done. Fantastic. Let's come back to the link then, or to the clip, and 9 things to know about eating disorders that people maybe haven't realised. Or I think the bit that caught my attention, maybe because it was the bit that Keanu said, and I was like, oh. But like, it could be easy for families to become really paralyzed with shame about, like, this is their fault and they've done something terrible to their family member, and like, this is an important thing to know and to understand. That
I think that maybe it's been a bit of a stereotype across mental health in general over the years, that eating disorders are caused by the parents kind of idea. And what we for sure know about eating disorders is they are way more complicated than being based on one factor, that it takes a whole collection of things. And as you heard in that clip, part of that might be genetics, which we have very limited control over, along with relationships and life experience and personality type, and all those things have to come together in the wrong person at the wrong time. So you can't reasonably blame anybody in any way, shape or form in what contributes to the development of an eating disorder. But every time I meet a parent in my practice, they're saying, what have I done to cause this? How can I make it better for her or him? Is this my fault? And if parents are feeling that, either that potentially limits the openness to support because they feel guilty and they feel ashamed, and maybe we should try and fix it on our own so we don't have to involve other people, or they are scared to be part of the process because I'm making it worse, or it's a whole complicated dynamic where families are involved, particularly parents and younger clients, that the stigma of eating disorders is almost as impactful as the actual illness itself on the person that's experiencing it and on the family unit as well.
Yeah, it makes sense what you're saying, Kel, that everybody kind of needs to feel okay enough to be able to get involved and contribute to the recovery.
Yeah. And it's not uncommon for one person in a family to refer a young person, and usually I only usually get the opportunity to work any communication in with family if it's a young person, because lots of my clients are older and I may never have any reason to kind of have any interaction with their parents. But younger clients whose parents are bringing them to sessions, there's 9 times out of 10 some dynamic in there that maybe mum always brings them because dad doesn't understand, so doesn't want to get involved, or dad always brings them because maybe mum's a yo-yo dieter and feels some responsibility because of that. Or it really does kind of separate the people in their family, and people are looking for something to blame which I think is kind of part of the human process. That's what we do, is we hang experiences on something to make sense of it. That happened because of that, and the consequence of this action is that. So I think that that's a really human thing to do, but not very helpful in relation to eating disorders.
Yeah, that makes sense. And do you have a way of kind of working with that in your practice, Kel? Like if, like some of those, you've got your client, but there's some contact with a parent, bringing them or not bringing them, and like, are you trying to kind of also relax the parent a little bit, or kind of make
as a counsellor, I only work one-to-one, but I will invite parents if they wish to come into the first session, so that we can have a conversation about how therapy with me in particular is going to work, what the other options might be, so that they feel like they're buying into an option that is what they want, and to encourage them to recognise that this is impacting on them as well. So it might not just be the young person that needs some support. So I've got a few other therapists local to me who I feel comfortable to refer the parents on to, or they may just go back to the doctors and access some therapy that way. We're quite lucky here. We've got two or three support groups within about 10 miles who do accept family members and carers going into the support groups. Support groups tend to be 18 plus for eating disorders, so the young person might not be able to attend, but their family might find it really helpful to go here to get some sort of normalisation that other people are experiencing this as well.
Yeah.
And I contributed to a book a couple of years ago called Ed Says by June Alexander, who's a lady who's recovered from an eating disorder herself, which is kind of helps the reader understand how somebody living with an eating disorder interprets communication. So, for example, you might say to somebody with an eating disorder, "Oh, you're looking so much better," and then they're going to break down and they have a really bad day, and that might make no sense to you. But actually what the person with the eating disorder heard was, "Oh, you look like you don't need that much help anymore," or "You look fat now," some variation like that. They're experiencing it through the lens of the distortion of their illness.
Yeah. And what's the name of that book again, Kel?
Ed Says, so ED, so the abbreviation for eating disorders, Says, and it's by June Alexander.
Fantastic.
My name is in the credits. I was very excited.
Oh, that's fantastic, Kel. So definitely a great reference. I can see a colleague in the chat room saying about what you're saying about you can't, like, it's too complex just to blame the parents or anyone in the system, and colleagues saying this is so reassuring to know this. So we got another comment coming in from Facebook, so thank you, Sandra, for making sure I'm not missing that. More of a comment than a question, saying that often high functioning bulimia is not usually taken seriously by mental health workers. Is that something that you've seen, that maybe people are struggling with their eating, but maybe it doesn't come within a criteria or a diagnostic criteria?
Yeah, about 3 years ago, the diagnostic criteria around eating disorders changed a little bit, which we did hope would make some improvements. But at this point, we're still in the transition phase, so that hasn't happened yet. But in terms of statutory services, most eating disorder services, and again it goes back to money and lack of funding, have quite strict referral pathways, which are either based on BMI, so the client's weight, and that's usually only indicated by a low weight, so you're unlikely to get a referral without a lower BMI, or severe medical complications. But we're working in mental health, so the person's experience is not necessarily intrinsically linked to the physical consequences of it. And it's actually what I'm about to do my dissertation on in the next few months, is I'm looking at therapists' responses to people with eating disorders, and to look at how do we think, feel, respond differently based on diagnosis. Do we feel disempowered when it's somebody that we can't refer on to a specialist service? Or do we feel safer because they're not at that severe end of the spectrum? There's kind of lots of potential stuff going in there. And in the eating disorder field, there's loads of assumptions around it. So you'll hear lots of people that specialise in eating disorders talking about eating disorders come in all shapes and sizes, and all shapes and sizes are equally severe. But that isn't necessarily what the services and the pathways we've got in the UK always indicate. And it's frustrating, and it often in my practice shows up in the fact that clients, if we think of something like the person who asked the question used bulimia as an example, if we use a client with bulimia, most of my clients that present with bulimia usually are older than my clients that present with a restrictive eating disorder. Now, I don't think that that's because that's indicative of the demographic of the illness. I think it's because somebody who looks sick is going to get treatment, is going to access treatment, is going to be forced to access treatment earlier than somebody that can hide their behaviours more easily. And very often people with bulimia do hide their behaviours. There's lots of shame around it, and therefore may have had their illness for a lot longer before they ever arrive for any sort of counselling or refer themselves to for treatment. And often, scarily, it is a medical consequence that makes somebody think, okay, I want to do something about this.
Yeah. So someone's got to the stage where maybe over many years it is really impacting their body. And are you kind of saying like the diagnostic criteria and the services here in the UK are more focused on the risk to the body and are missing like the risk to mental health, which can also be profound, I guess, if someone is really distressed?
We most services treat anorexia nervosa as the predominance of clients, which statistically makes no sense. Only 10% of cases of eating disorders are anorexia nervosa. And if you look at treatment demographics inside eating disorder services, that isn't what's reflected. You will see much more clients, much higher percentage of clients presenting with anorexia nervosa inside those treatment services. And some people might say that that's because that client group is more likely to present for treatment. But I see far more clients with bulimia nervosa, with binge eating disorder, with a non-specific eating disorder that might be somewhere in between any of those three, than I do strict anorexia nervosa in the truest sense. So if they're referring themselves to me, they've probably tried to refer themselves to eating disorder services first, because most people, realistically, if you get something on the NHS first, you're going to try that first.
Yeah.
So I think it might be a bit of a cop-out to say that it's because clients with restrictive eating disorders present more frequently for treatment, because certainly my practice, and that's just a small pool in the northwest of England.
Yes, like it's maybe it's a small sample, but I guess you're saying, well, this is what you're seeing, and maybe you're seeing the clients that are not then like not being helped by those services. Or it's harder to get help, perhaps. Another question from Facebook. So thank you to the colleagues out there who are typing away as well. Kel, do you think that people can ever fully recover in terms of body image and eating flexibly? Yeah.
If we look at those two things separately.
Yeah, so there's two questions in there at least, yes.
I think it depends what you consider healthy body image. And I have this conversation with all my clients. The average healthy adult does not look in the mirror and think, oh my gosh, I'm gorgeous and I love everything about myself. That's a little bit unrealistic in most people's experience. So therefore, I don't think we can expect clients to get to a place where they have that, where they think, oh my God, I love my body now. But to get to a place where they feel comfortable enough in their body and where they can, with honesty, reflect on the things that they're unhappy about. So for example, I'm 5 foot tall, would quite like to be slightly taller. It's never going to happen. So if I think about it every day, it's not going to help me in any way, shape or form. And that's usually the case with most things about our body. I want a smaller nose or wider hips or whatever it might be that somebody might wish was different. And across the spectrum of eating disorders, what they would hope was different might alter. So in terms of eating disorders, getting to a place where you treat your body with respect, where you have an accurate perception of the presentation of your body, so you can say, yes, it's underweight, no, it's healthy, no, it's overweight, and to not be preoccupied with that. Because lots of people look in the mirror and go, and cover it up with some makeup or some clothes or whatever, and get on with their day, and they only think about it for that brief moment in the morning, and that to me is normal. So in terms of body image, I think that it's really important to be specific about what does a good body image even mean.
That just sounds so important, Kel. Like we might be tempted to try and help our clients to do something that we can't manage to do, and it's just not necessarily normal or
perfect place, which doesn't exist, I don't think.
Yes.
But in relation to flexible eating, 100% people have the potential to get there. Largely that's going to be based on individuals' motivation, how much they wish to change. So some clients, when I first meet them, are still very much in the chaos of their eating disorder. Some clients, when I meet them, have maybe been in contact with local services and are using a dietitian's 3 meals, 3 snacks a day type plan. Some people might even be further along in recovery and wanting to protect themselves from relapse. But each stage of that represents a different goal in terms of change in relation to food, because in that early stage the goal for treatment in relation to dietetics and meal plans and stabilization is just to instigate some sort of normal eating pattern with enough calories and all the rest of it. So at that point, having flexible eating is so far off in the distance that saying it's necessary at this point is just going to sabotage the person, because they need to feel in control and clear about what we're asking them to do. But I meet lots of people in that middle stage who've maybe been on a meal plan for months, sometimes even years. I've worked with people that have long since finished with eating disorder services and are still eating on a strict meal plan. And I'm going, it can change, it really can change. And for me, the turning point is when somebody gets excited about eating something for the first time, that it's not just part of I eat breakfast, I eat lunch, I eat evening meal. So if a client says, I ate this thing and it was really great, or I'm going to go and do this thing with my friends and we're going to have a meal and I'm really excited, and there's some, we've got past it being this thing I have to do, and it's something that they're engaging with in a healthier way, in my perspective.
So that's the turning point, like when you notice clients having that, or getting a little bit excited about some food that they might enjoy. And I mean, this is probably too big or an impossible question to answer, but what helps us to get to that point, do you think, Kel? Like, it's probably many things.
That's going to depend on the person. And some people aren't going to want that freedom. Some people are going to feel quite comfortable staying on the meal plan, and I don't think it's my job to say that's wrong. I do think it is my job to tell them it can be different, but I don't think it's my job to tell them that staying in that place is wrong. But in terms of changes for flexibility, it kind of has to be, in 90% of instances, doing something you're terrified of a few times, and the client realizing, actually, I didn't suddenly gain loads of weight or lose loads of weight, dependent on what their fear is, or become totally out of control, or my emotions be all over the place because I engaged in that one different behavior, spontaneous behavior, outside my comfort zone behavior. What I often do with clients, irrespective of the point they're at, actually, is get them, this is quite CBT, which is very unlike me, get them to write a list of things that they would like to change that are related to their eating disorder behaviours. And usually things like eat a piece of my own birthday cake pop up on that list, or go out for a meal with friends, or eat a meal I don't know the calorie content of. That sort of thing comes up quite often. and then it's literally kind of true CBT style, find the one that might be the easiest and start there and work way up, giving it a try. But usually, once a person has started to attempt some of these things that they thought were terrifying, the rest of the list is obsolete because their anxiety is reduced by experiencing, actually, it's okay.
Yeah, so it's like once the much smaller tasks start to happen, then the bigger tasks will come in time. Yeah. I think that's a great technique. Have the list, start with the smallest thing, and it gets us on a roll, I guess, gets some momentum going. Yeah.
And clients with eating disorders often like something quite concrete, which is maybe where they and I differ, which is interesting because I choose to specialise in eating disorders, which is a very medicalised, structured area. I'm a humanistic counsellor, but there you go. So having something that they feel like they're working towards is often really helpful as well, in terms of what am I doing in this therapy and where am I going, and also in terms of those things that I've tried before, I did all those things successfully as well.
Yeah, like this is a really important thing to know if we're doing some work, particularly as a humanistic therapist with a client who has an eating disorder, that it may be a stretch to our philosophy, but the client themselves might need some kind of program. Yeah, or some kind of, maybe program's a big word, like activities or say again?
Structure.
Some kind of structure, yeah, to feel safe in, I guess.
Yeah. And I guess in my interpretation of being humanistic, if that's what the client's saying is helpful for them, then I'm going to go with it, even if I don't necessarily love kind of CBT type tools as a blanket treatment.
Well, theoretically, I would see that as an empathic intervention.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess that's why I refer to myself as integrative, because my humanistic foundations say to me, if a client wants to go with something, then I'm going to give it a try, providing that it's safe to do so and I know something about it.
Yes. Well, those are important riders as well, aren't they? That we must work within our competencies for sure. I'm just noticing another question in the chat room, so thanks to everybody who's kind of interacting here. Really appreciate it. Wondering what if for someone it's not actually about the body image, but about some kind of anxiety. Is that like an eating disorder might have arisen to help someone manage their anxiety? Could that be possible? I'm not sure if that's what the colleague is asking, but
we'll go on assuming that your assumption was correct.
Okay, let's do that.
And the realistic answer to that question is actually very few people with eating disorders actually developed an eating disorder directly and or solely to do with their body, with their body image, with their size. That might be a way of managing something else, just the same as alcohol or drugs or self-harm or a whole other pile of things I'm sure you can think of.
Yeah.
But an eating disorder is simply just a coping mechanism, and I do very little work on body image with clients. I do lots of work on identity and self-esteem and self-concept and self-respect and self-care and people's internalized experiences of relationships and what that means and assumptions and all that sort of stuff. I do very little work directly on body image because once a person feels confident and self-assured and respects themselves, they're unlikely to want to continue to harm their body in the way that they are doing.
Okay, yeah. That makes so much sense, Kel. It could be easy for us to get focused on like maybe what is presenting immediately, someone talking about how they feel about their body and how it looks, but actually you're working with something kind of underneath that, or
yeah. And just like if we use alcoholism as a comparison, you're not likely to spend 50 minutes of your session sat with somebody talking about in great detail how many units, how often, where, when they engaged in drinking in the past week. You would probably look at the why, and you'd probably look at the behaviour change, and you'd probably look at what that represents, as in lack of self-care and all the rest of it. But you probably wouldn't be like, okay, so you had 3 vodka tonics, 6 glasses of wine, 3 litres of...
Yeah, like it would be it's part of the work, but it's not central to the work, I guess. Yeah, that makes so much sense. And I can see the colleague going, that was a wonderful answer, thank you. So I think we managed to get the right question and a really helpful answer. Thank you, Kel. Another question, let me pick this up. And this is about working with clients who are severely anorexic. So do you think it's important to start small with changes in diet with someone who is severely anorexic, or get them on a proper feeding regime for weight gain?
Okay.
This is a big question, and I guess this is a question that has risk in it, and maybe is about more than one practitioner, something like that. But yeah, so I want to give you some space to think about it, Kel. That's why I'm still chatting away.
To start with, it would depend in what context you're seeing that person.
Right.
As in, are you within an eating disorder service? Are they coming to you in private practice? Are they going to need to go into hospital for this? Often clients with very severe anorexia in particular need to. And if you are in private practice and or you're in a service that doesn't specialise with eating disorders, you need to be so careful about being clear about what your boundaries are in relation to your responsibility about this point to start with. So I am not a dietitian. I know quite a lot about dietetics and meal plans and calories because it's all I've heard for the last 12 years of my life.
Yes.
But I feel it's inappropriate for me to cross that boundary. I might work on engaging with the meal plan and engaging with the changes and how we feel about them, but I wouldn't be putting a meal plan in place per se myself. Whether changes are gradual or whether it's sudden is going to depend on how that person's body is coping. There comes a point with restrictive eating disorder where there is no other option but for that person to go into hospital and to be, it gets called refed in a hospital setting, because a very severely malnourished body is at risk of something called refeeding syndrome. So refeeding syndrome is basically where, I'll explain this in the briefest form, where the base elements that are needed in your body to process food, so for example, magnesium, potassium, phosphate, sodium, all that sort of stuff, are so depleted that if you suddenly put in loads of food, the body basically goes into medical shock and it can't process the food and you can die of it.
Wow. Okay.
So it might be necessary if this person is very severely underweight with anorexia and is engaged in very heavy restricting, because people get very underweight in different ways. Some people get there over a long period of time with still eating regularly, and some people get there quite suddenly and eating very, very little at the point of presentation. So that would make a difference to that decision as well. But a person that is really in that worst place is likely to need daily medical monitoring, daily blood tests, and all that sort of stuff for it to be safe, at least in that first couple of weeks, to see, is this a person that's going to experience refeeding syndrome? And not everybody does experience refeeding syndrome, but it's so life-threatening so quickly, and it's not easy to catch without being in hospital, that it's better to be safe than sorry. But beyond that, lots of my clients come to me as they come out of inpatient care. So they've had that medical stabilisation already, and they've probably got a meal plan already. And from that point forward, my opinion is, as long as it's medically safe to do so, it's better to do it with a client on board and their active consent, which is probably going to mean little steps. But keeping in mind that, again, if they are very underweight, we can't continue to leave them in a place where they're continuing to lose weight because they're going to end up needing to go into hospital again or instead.
And what does that mean, that we can't leave them like that? What does that mean in practical terms, Kel?
Well, I don't treat any client, and some people think this is a little bit controversial. I don't think so. I don't treat any client without them also being under the care of their GP in relation to what I'm working with them with, irrespective of where they are on the eating disorder spectrum as well. So if this client contacted me today and said, I have got severe anorexia nervosa and I want to access some care, I would, just as we would with any client, ask some basic questions. Are you under the care of anybody else? What treatment have you had before? Where are you up to in this process? And if they aren't accessing any other care, then I insist, again, very not congruent with humanistic therapy, I insist that the person goes and sees their GP. And if they won't go and see their GP, then they're not the right client for me, because I'm not willing to carry that risk. I understand the medical risk, and I have seen people, luckily so far, touch wood, I haven't got any around me, I've seen people die of their eating disorder, but touch wood, none of those have been my clients, but they've been people I've worked with in other capacities, and I'm just not willing to take that risk. And I think it's about me respecting the risk of eating disorders in private practice.
Yeah, that makes so much sense, Kel. Particularly in private practice, we need to work within our skill set and our competence, and we're both in private practice, we're not GPs, we don't work in that context. And
not for X-ray vision is what I always say to my clients.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've done some work together here at Online Events where you have shared the letter, you've kind of got a standard letter that you agree with your clients that you will send to their GP so that you're in that three-way relationship.
Yeah. And it is a tricky one, but at the same time, would I rather not work in eating disorders? And there are not many counsellors that feel safe and comfortable working in eating disorders. And I've got, even before I came to therapy, I had sort of 6 or so years experience in eating disorders. So I've now got about 12. I can use that experience and be as safe and ethical and congruent in my practice as I can be, and work with a group of clients that have a scarily high mortality rate and try and make a tiny difference in a small way in my small practice. Or I can let the fear win and I can go, okay, I'll work with things without medical complications attached to them because that feels easier. And unfortunately, I hear so many stories through the advocacy work that I do of people being turned away from therapy or not meeting eating disorder services referral criteria, and then also being turned away from private therapy. Because rightly so, therapists are scared about the medical implications and not particularly educated in the medical implications. Doesn't come up on counselling diplomas.
Absolutely, Kel. And it's so important for the practitioner's safety and the client's safety that the risk is taken care of. For me, again, it's not about counselling philosophy, it's about being empathic. The real danger to your client if they're not in contact with medical professionals. And I really love what you're saying. This is for all your clients with eating disorders, not just someone who'd be presenting in a kind of a very, very risky state, because as you're saying, that risk is high in this client group.
I have permission for one of my clients to use them for training purposes.
Could you say that again, Kel? It just broke up, sorry.
I have permission for one of my clients to use their experience as part of my training packages, and it's something that I talk about a lot, which is really what we're talking about in this middle ground of medical stuff as well, is that she had a history of a restrictive eating disorder and was presenting quite far down her journey during a relapse, so during a time when her behaviours were becoming worse again. And at that point, I think it's easy to think, oh wait, it's okay, she's probably medically stable, things are all right. And I didn't, because I have to set a blanket rule, and my blanket rule is go to your GP. And that happened. And this was before my hopefully cleverly written GP letter that we've used on online events before. And she'd gone to a GP, and the GP was doing the medical monitoring, and she presented one day, and I'd only seen her 6 days before. She presented one day, and she was hugely bloated, like head to toe. Wow. In 6 days, it's not possible to gain that much weight. So she walked through the practice door, and I said, "Is so-and-so still with you?" When the person was bringing her, and she said, "Yeah, they will have just gone to the car." And I went, "I need you to go to hospital." And I didn't see her. And I sent her to the hospital, and she went to the hospital. And the next day, I think, this other person contacted me and said, actually, she's been admitted, and her potassium was really low, and she's going to be on a drip for a week or two. And she had severely low potassium, which causes water retention, which is what the bloating was. And I don't know how her doctor had missed that. I'm guessing he'd not done the right blood test, which is why I'm quite specific in the letter I send now. But she'd had a blood test in that period, in between those 2 sessions.
Really? Wow.
And still something had changed. And I didn't know a huge amount about potassium at that point. It forced me to go and learn about it.
Okay.
I knew that's weird. Haven't seen that often before. And I'm scared. And sent her. And that water retention potentially could have caused heart failure.
Really, Kel? Wow.
So the low potassium could have caused heart failure, which is terrifying. And she was of a healthy weight at that point. But she'd had an eating disorder over a long period of time, and she was experiencing a relapse. And something I say to clients is, the more you relapse, the harder your body is going to find it to bounce back each time. And that was a perfect example of why I don't only send them to the GPs if they're this example that somebody on Facebook was asking about, them being severely underweight.
Yeah.
Because I know more than most counsellors about medical complications, and particularly to eating disorders, but I'm not a medical professional. I can't take blood tests or blood pressure or heart readings. And it is a mental health illness, but it has massive physical implications.
Yeah.
And I would be doing myself and the clients a disservice to ignore that.
Yeah.
Plus probably getting myself sued at some point.
Yes. Yeah, it wouldn't be helpful for your clients or you. And I think that's such a useful example. Really appreciate your client being willing for you to have that in your training work, that it could be easy to make big assumptions, like a lot of assumptions when someone's body is not shocking us, I guess. Yeah. And Sandra's just let me know, a colleague saying on Facebook, it's good to distinguish between the counsellor's responsibilities and the dietitians. And I guess you're also talking about medical practitioners. And I kind of want to say, if anybody would like that letter, you've been trying to get it out as far and wide as possible. If you are seeing a client who's got an eating disorder, or someone presents, get over to Kel's website, send Kel a message, and you'll pass out the letter. Or we've got it too on our servers, so press the big orange help button on your screen, ask us for the letter, we'll get it out to you. It's really useful. Yeah, Kel, we've only got a few minutes left. This hour has gone in a flash. We've had lots of questions and comments, so thanks to everybody who's been watching. I know not everybody is commenting. We're really pleased to have you here. And of course, if you're watching this in the library, Kel and I won't be here for a comment. So thank you for being with us in this hour. I mean, it's a day focused on eating disorders, Kel. Hopefully all over the world. Sandra and I are really pleased to work with you to make a little contribution to what's going on. Do you have any, I'm going to put you on the spot again, Kel. Do you have any parting thoughts for us? I guess a lot of the colleagues viewing will be mental health professionals, not everyone. I'm thinking you've said a few times about how scared we might be with clients. Like, that makes sense and maybe is important, but what would you say to colleagues who are feeling anxious? Yeah, about seeing clients.
It's fine to feel like that. It's telling you something.
Yeah.
Don't ignore it, but also don't let your fear rule your choices about who you do and don't work with. Do something about it, educate yourself so that you can simultaneously feel scared, because I still feel scared, but that you can feel scared and feel capable at the same time. That it's unfortunately quite common for clients to have been passed around 3, 4, 5, 20 times before they find a practitioner that's educated about eating disorders. So if those clients, for whatever reason, are coming to you, you've got something to offer them. Feel scared, get educated, and then use it.
Yeah, that's so helpful what you're saying, Kel. Like the fear or the anxiety is helpful data and can kind of spur us on to get that education and to be really useful for the people that we work with. Yeah.
I remember my supervisor, when I had this client I was just using as an example, she said to me, "What made you send us to the doctors? What made you send us to the hospital rather than just back to the doctors?" And I said, something changed that shocked me. And I wasn't willing to take a risk of go to the doctors, and who says the client even goes to the doctors?
Yeah.
So my fear told me take action. So if I think I'm not supposed to be scared, I'm supposed to be this equipped therapist that knows what they're doing, my business card says eating disorder specialist. Yeah. If I ignored that shock and fear, then God only knows what would have happened.
Yeah. That's a very sobering thought, isn't it? Like, use the data we've got in our body, even if it's uncomfortable. We think, I shouldn't be shocked.
Yeah. And that client is now fully recovered a few years on.
That's great to hear, Kel. So good to hear. Yes, well, well, that's really nice to have that as we come to an end, Kel. And also, we want to tell colleagues we're going to do something like this each month, like Kel's Corner or something. So we'd love it if colleagues come back, more questions, more comments, sharing the learning. If you've got colleagues who are struggling in this part of the field, please pass the word on. Keep your eye on the online events site, and we will be doing a regular slot together, Kel. That would be great.
And I'd be really happy to see some really obvious questions and some really difficult questions as well, because I equally value the opportunity to go, do you know what, I don't know, but I'll go and find out, because that's how I get better at it as well.
Yep. So if you've if colleagues, we haven't got to everything, hit us up on the Facebook page, or if you're in the online events Facebook group, pop questions and comments there, and give you some things to chew on in between events, Kel. Yes. Yeah, that'd be great. Well, I want to say thanks to everybody who's joined us live. If you've been watching us in the library, thank you too. Kel, thanks for this hour today. We really appreciate it.
No problem.
Till the next time we can work together, we'll say bye for now. Bye-bye.